Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Please accept my respectful obeisances also. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're ready to begin? Okay. Om Jnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubai Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone back to our ongoing study of Bhagavad Gita at the level of Bhakti Sastri, and we're still on chapter 10. Right? Oh, let me see. Okay, chapter 10. We were hearing about we heard the Chatur Shloki. How did the chapter begin actually? Chapter 10, how did it begin? Anyone remembers? How did the 10th chapter begin?
So Maharaj, Krishna told that I'll give you more confidential knowledge. Like I had already given you confidential knowledge, but I will give you more confidential knowledge. What more than what I've given.
All right. Yes. Good.
And then Krishna told that even sages and demigods cannot understand me.
Oh, yes. Very good. Yes. Anything else? Remember text number 7?
That those progenitors and manus are also born from my mind. So I am the source of everything.
Yes. Okay.
From the next verse, Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita started. From the Aham Bij Pradapita verse.
Aham bija pradapita.
Aham sarvasya prabhavo.
Aham sarvasya
prabhavo matasam.
Right. Aham sarvasya prabhu. That's right. Okay.
Then it's a sambandh. This verse is established the sambandha jnana.
Yes, right. That's Sambandha Gyan, Aham Sarvasya Prabhuvo.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, text number 7, I wanted to bring to your attention, text number 7, Lord Krishna is speaking. He said, one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. So that was the point, that Lord Krishna was emphasizing how we have to be convinced about Lord Krishna's opulence and his supremacy over everything. And then Krishna spoke the Chatur Shloki, and we heard how Lord Krishna reciprocates with the devotees. First of all, we heard how the devotee engages in the service of the Lord, and then we heard how the Lord reciprocates, how he gives knowledge into the heart to help them to achieve perfection. All right, then going on to this next section, verses 12 up to 18. Desiring to hear in detail about the vibhutis, which he already heard in summary, Arjuna speaks by praising the Lord in 7 verses. So Arjuna's praise of the Lord is important. How does Arjuna praise the Lord? Do you remember? You know, it's often quoted, text number 12, right? After hearing the Chatur Sloki, how does Arjuna respond?
Maharaj, verse is Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Adam Vibhum.
Yes, right.
Arjuna is saying, Krishna, you are a supreme personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth.
Yes, right. Arjuna's convinced. He's telling us, he's telling Krishna, because Krishna was saying you have to be convinced. Krishna said, I'm convinced. He's responding to Krishna. And then Arjuna said, not only am I convinced, it's not only am I accepting you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the other great personalities, they also accepted you. And who did Arjuna speak about? Who else accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That's verse number 13.
Maharaj, the verse is
Narad,
Asit-
Asit, Deval, Vyas.
Yes, right. Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa.
Yes, Maharaj, Arjuna is saying that all these great sages have, this is not me only saying you the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, all have confirmed this, that you are a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's more giving stamp to the that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead by giving example of these.
Right. And now Arjuna said, I'm also convinced. He said, right? He's saying like that. He said, all the great sages, such as Asita, Devala, Narada, Vyas, confirm this about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So it's not that Arjuna, it's that Krishna is declaring it to Arjuna. It's Krishna himself is declaring it to Arjuna. This is very interesting how Krishna is declaring himself to Arjuna. But then, text number 14, Sarvam itam ritanmanye yamam vadisi keshava. Oh Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons can understand your personality. That's also often quoted. Sarvam itat ritam manye yammam vadasi keshava. That this is Arjuna's position. He totally accepts whatever Krishna says as truth. So that's very important. We should have complete faith in whatever Krishna says. We should not doubt. Okay? From the purport of text 12 and 13, Prabhupada has written, it is not that because Krishna is Arjuna's intimate friend, so Arjuna is flattering him by calling him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Whatever Arjuna says in these 2 verses is confirmed by Vedic truth. Vedic injunctions affirm that only one who takes the devotional service to the Supreme Lord can understand him, whereas others cannot. Each and every word of this verse spoken by Arjuna is confirmed by Vedic injunction. So it's very powerful presentation Prabhupada's making, very authoritative here. Whatever Arjuna said, it's not just some sentimental feeling, or he wants to praise someone. It's all confirmed by Vedic statements. Okay? And it's a little exercise here on discussing academic integrity. We will ask you, pose from the statement, pose the statement from the purport to verse 14, that we can understand that scholarship is a waste of time. Ask students to discuss and comment. How about that? Scholarship is a waste of time. Text, purport to text number 14. Right, somebody like to read the purport for us, text number 14?
Yes, Maharaj. Arjuna herein confirms that persons of faithless and demonic nature cannot understand Krishna. He is not known even by the demigods. So what to speak of the so-called scholars of this modern world? By the grace of Supreme Lord, Arjuna has understood that the supreme truth is Krishna and that he is the perfect one. One should therefore follow the path of Arjuna. He received the authority of Bhagavad Gita. As described in the 4th chapter, the Parampara system of disciplic succession for the understanding of Bhagavad Gita was lost, and therefore Krishna re-established that disciplic succession with Arjuna because he considered Arjuna his intimate friend and a great devotee. Therefore, as stated in our introduction of Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita should be understood in the Parampara system. When the Parampara system was lost, Arjuna was selected to rejuvenate it. The acceptance by Arjuna of all that Krishna says should be emulated. Then we can understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, and then only we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
All right, thank you, Mataji. So in the purport, Prabhupada had written there that what is it? He said that what to speak of so-called scholars of the modern age. He said, Arjuna confirmed that persons of faithless and demonic nature cannot understand Krishna. He is not known even by the demigods. So what to speak of the so-called scholars of the modern age? So Prabhupada is not encouraging scholarship, right? That it's not by scholarship that we're going to actually know Krishna. So how do we feel about this? You know, people do like to study. We do have some devotees, they go after PhDs and they do postgraduate studies and so on. And they're held in high regard as being scholars. And we have also they have GBC College, right? Go to the GBC College and they'll get you to do write papers and so on. Some scholarship is required. So, any comments about this? How do you understand scholarship is a waste of time?
Maharaj, this is in the term of material knowledge, getting material knowledge. Two things is coming in my mind. First is, as we read that Gyan Karmadi Anavritam. So in Gyan or Karma Adi, the knowledge which is required to understand Krishna, that is required. First thing. And second, like material knowledge, if someone, bhakti is a matter of heart. If someone is not much literated, doesn't mean that he cannot go further into the bhakti. And if someone is a PhD or a scholar or having high qualification, he can, as we know, as we read earlier also, that everything can be used in the service of Krishna. So he can, his degrees, his knowledge, that can be used in preaching.
Preaching to who?
Preaching to whole world, Maharaj.
Well, sometimes we see, I'll play the devil's advocate. I'll play the devil's advocate against you. I'll say that I see that these people who have their PhDs, that they often speak on such a level that ordinary people cannot understand. You know, they're big philosophers, and they speak it because they've been educated in the higher realms of academia. You know, they've gone into the higher levels of education. So when they speak and whatever they present, it's all words and it's very deep and it's very difficult to understand. They don't often, they're not able to present it in a manner which odd people can actually understand. And they're so covered by this being a scholar, and they want to write everything in such a flowery language with so many big words and meanings which are very difficult to grasp. This is very difficult.
Maharaj, his divine grace, his divine grace, Bhakti Sastri Maharaj also, he's a scholar. He's a scholar. He also has I haven't read his books, but I was hearing in one lecture that if we have to read his books, so we have to take dictionary with us, like this. But he has also preached. He's a Charya.
Yes, this is what you say is true, that he was a scholarly person and he did preach. He did preach everywhere. But as you say, to read his books, you know, you'd need a dictionary. And Prabhupada also said, he said, I couldn't understand my Guru Maharaj in the beginning. He said initially, I couldn't understand him. I couldn't understand what he was talking, because he was talking on such a high level. But of course he was very powerful and he attracted many people. He was a great scholar. And so your point is taken, it's a good point. He certainly had some scholarship. But here, Prabhupada is mentioning scholarship is a waste of time. Or not directly, but he said, what to speak of scholars of the modern world? He said, even the demigods cannot understand Krishna. So what hope do the scholars have? So, what is your comment?
Maharaj, as we say that nowadays, as we have Gurukul in Mayapur, these children also are getting education there. But whatever education is required, that they are getting. We are not training them to become a scholar like this. So, and preaching should be according to place, time, place and circumstance. If I know that I am gonna address people who are not so very much, suppose I am going to a village, so I will preach like they will be able to grasp. The motive of is that the bhakti should give, but go into their hearts, like this. So these 2 points, Maharaj.
Okay, yes. Yes, I think also we should understand that scholarship, it can be used in Krishna's service, but the important qualification is devotion. We want to understand everything by it's a devotion. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, you were saying, was a scholar, but he was also a great devotee. So what is meant here, if one simply focuses on being a scholar and without cultivating their devotion for Krishna, then that's a waste of time. There has to be devotion for Krishna. And then some scholarship can also be used. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, glorified Lord Chaitanya, he said, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shiksharta Eka Purusha Purana. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us devotion along with Vairagya and Vidya, so transcendental knowledge. So it's not scholarship alone which is required, but there must be also the devotion. You have to cultivate the devotion. So scholarship, some devotees are inclined to do this, and some devotees, they went into higher studies. I know Tamal Krishna Goswami, he was endeavoring for his PhD at one point before he departed from the world. And many other devotees, like Prabhupada disciples, Rabindra Swarup Prabhu, he's a very scholarly devotee. And then Garuda Prabhu, also another scholarly devotee. They're very senior Prabhupada disciples, and they're very learned and scholarly. But at the same time, they're devotees. And so it's not a total waste of time. And Prabhupada did want devotees to preach on these levels, that we do have to preach. We have to preach everywhere. And so if some devotees are qualified, they can also enter into that field of preaching and preach to the scholars and educate people there about Krishna consciousness. Anybody else like to comment?
Maharaj, can I say something here?
Yes?
So Maharaj, we were talking to we were talking to my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj. We were sitting, with him. We had the pleasure of having his company. So somebody asked Maharaj that, why, how do you balance out your material studies and bhakti? So Maharaj only said one thing. Maharaj said, we don't want people to think that when you come to Krishna consciousness that you don't have to study and you just become like, you just leave everything and you become unintelligent. So Maharaj said, we want you to study, but on the same platform, we want you to take care of your devotional life as well. So it is very important to strike a balance so that you don't lose your Krishna consciousness and you don't become, somebody who's unuseful.
Okay. Yes. Very good point. Thank you, Maraji. Very nice. Yeah, coming to Krishna consciousness, we shouldn't think, oh, I don't need to study, I don't need to know anything, I just chant Hare Krishna and dance. No, Prabhupada wanted all of us to learn the philosophy. And nowadays also many spiritual masters, they're requiring that if you want to get your second initiation, you first of all complete Bhakti Sastri. And on the basis that you've studied Bhakti Sastri, we can understand that you've at least studied the basic philosophy. So that's important. So it's not that scholarship is a total waste of time, it's a question of how we use it. But we don't want to think only scholarship, or just be a scholar and don't chant and don't worship the deities and don't preach. Well, some people just they don't preach, but preaching should also go on. Okay, we'll go ahead, right? So from the purport of text number 16, people in general and the impersonalists in particular concern themselves mainly with the all-pervading nature of the Supreme. So Arjuna is asking Krishna how he exists in his all-pervading aspect through his different energies. Right? Someone can read text 16 for us?
Ji Maharaj. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. Purport. In this verse, it appears that Arjuna is already satisfied with his understanding.
Yeah,
with his understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. By Krishna's grace, Arjuna has personal experience, intelligence and knowledge, and whatever else a person may have, and through all these agencies, he has understood Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For him, there is no doubt, yet he is asking Krishna to explain his all-pervading nature. People in general and the impersonalists in particular concern themselves mainly with all-pervading nature of the Supreme. So Arjuna is asking Krishna how he exists in his all-pervading aspect through his different energies. One should know that this is being asked by Arjuna on behalf of the common people. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaji. Yes. So Arjuna doesn't have any problem with this, but for the purpose of ordinary people, common people, they need to hear this. They need to hear about Krishna's all-pervading nature. They need to hear how Krishna is present in all the different phenomena of the material worlds. All right? And then text 17. Someone please read text 17. Just read translation.
O Krishna, O Supreme Mystery, how shall I constantly think of you, and how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Yeah, can you
Should
read
I
this?
read the purport?
You could read the Sanskrit.
Yeah. Katham vidyamaham yogim astvam sada parichintayan keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintayo asi bhagavan maya.
Ah, yes. Now purport, yeah?
As it is stated in the previous chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is covered by his Yoga Maya. Only surrendered souls and devotees can see him. Now Arjuna is convinced that his friend Krishna is the Supreme Godhead, but he wants to know the general process by which the all-pervading Lord can be understood by the common man. Common men, including the demons and atheists, cannot know Krishna because he is guarded by his Yoga Maya energy. Again, these questions are asked by Arjuna for their benefit. The superior devotee is concerned not only for his own understanding, but for the understanding of all mankind. So Arjuna, out of his mercy, because he is a Vaishnava, a devotee, is opening for the common man the understanding of all pervasiveness of the Supreme Lord. He addresses Krishna specifically as Yogin, because Sri Krishna is the master of the Yoga Maya energy by which he is covered and uncovered to the common man. The common man who has no love for Krishna cannot always think of Krishna. Therefore, he has to think materially. Arjuna is considering the mode of thinking of the materialistic persons of this world. The words keshu, keshu, cha bhaveshu refers to material nature. The word bhava means physical things. Because materialists cannot understand Krishna spiritually, they are advised to concentrate the mind on physical things and try to see how Krishna is manifested by physical representations. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yes. So Keshu Keshu Chabhavishu Chintosi Bhagavan Maya. Right? We want to see Krishna in the physical things. This comes up also in Srimad Bhagavatam in the beginning of the process of self-realization, the second canto. You have Sukadeva Goswami preaching to Maharaj Parikshit, and he begins by talking about seeing Krishna in the phenomena of the material world and contemplating the universal form, or pantheism, that kind of philosophy. So here, Lord Krishna is describing his opulences, how he is present in the phenomena of the material world. Materialists cannot understand Krishna spiritually. They cannot appreciate, for example, the deity, and they cannot always appreciate the holy name. So they're advised to concentrate the mind on physical things. So we're going to hear about physical things. Oh, how can we go about achieving direct inspiration from Krishna? We were talking, that's actually from the earlier part of the chapter. There's more relation to the chapter Shloki. We want direct inspiration from Krishna. Krishna says, right? What's the requirement to get direct inspiration from Krishna? Someone? Serving Krishna with love constantly. Sorry, Prabhu, you have to speak louder, more clearly.
Maharaj, we heard in that Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, the Rati Buddhi Yoga verse, that one should serve Krishna with love constantly.
Constant loving service to Krishna. Okay, what's the verse? Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yes, right, that's the verse, right, yes. Anybody else? Direct inspiration, any other answers? How will we get direct inspiration from Krishna?
Maharaj, we can also review the instructions in Bhagavad Gita.
Which instructions?
The many instructions that Lord Krishna is giving, and those apply to all of us.
There's a lot of instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. Every page is full of instructions, right? We've got Karma Mishra Yoga, you've got Jnana Yoga, you've got all kinds of, you've got the Dhyana Yoga. You know, which instructions are we supposed to take inspiration from? So many different processes are described there. But we want to get direct inspiration from Krishna. What do we need to do?
Maharaj, we need to surrender to Krishna how Arjuna did, like in Karpanya, Doshopal, Subhava, and Chamit.
Yeah, we need to. What do you need to do to surrender to Krishna? How are you going to go about that, surrendering to Krishna?
That famous verse, 9.34, which tells that practically what all things we have to do.
So the whole day you're just going to offer obeisances, bow down to Krishna?
Like like we can meditate upon Krishna's form, Krishna's pastime, we can hear about Krishna, basically everything in relation to Krishna.
Okay, yeah.
Maharaj, getting lolyam for performing loving devotional service.
How are you going to get that loyam?
By performing devotional activities on a continuous and regular basis.
Maharaj,
said you have to.
By the mercy.
Maharaj, by taking shelter of a spiritual master. Like once we take shelter of, because he's the manifestation of Krishna. Like Yasya Prasada Bhogar Prasada. So if we are able to please him, if we are able to take shelter of spiritual master, then Krishna will inspire us.
Yes, Maharaj, by getting mercy of Guru and Krishna.
Yes.
That is because we, in every situation, we are a beggars. So we have to beg for the mercy.
Beg for the mercy, yeah? So, you want the mercy, you have to please Guru and Krishna, right? We have to think how to please Guru and Krishna, and you have to understand, we have to think about that. What do I need to do to please Guru and Krishna?
Chanting his glories?
Yes, chanting the holy name, chanting his glories, and yeah, many different things you can do to please Krishna. Sometimes serve the devotees, taking care of the devotees, worshipping the deities. Well, so many things you can do, please Krishna. And certainly, if we're very eager, very dedicated, and really want to get Krishna's mercy, then it will happen and we will get the inspiration from Krishna. To those who are constantly devoted, Krishna gives the understanding by which we can come to him. Okay, so going on to Krishna's opulences, from verse 19 up to 42. So here you can see, I've kind of made different sections of the vibhutis because there's so many verses and they cover so many different topics. So we'll put some of them together. Like here we have the devatas, right? And you can see, of all devotees, Krishna is of all devatas, he is Indra. And of the Adityas, Vishnu. Of the Rudras, Shiva. Of generals, Kartikeya. Of the Vasus, Agni. Of the Daityas, Prahlad. Of the dispensers of law, Yamaraj. Of creators, Brahma. And causes of procreation, Kandarpa. These kind of questions, you know, they always come up in the closed book assessment. They will always ask you about different vibhutis. They'll give you, of devotees, who am I? Of the Daityas, who's Krishna? And you have to know these things. You gotta be familiar with these. You have to be able to fill them in, fill in the blanks. You know, add who's who. So here's from nature. Krishna says, I'm the light of the sun, and of stars is the moon, mountains, Meru, immovable things, the Himalayas, water bodies, the ocean, trees, the banyan, flowing rivers, the Ganga, months, Margashirsha, and of seasons, spring, right? Flower-bearing spring. Flower-bearing spring. Actually, it's not really complete. You know, in the exam, they'll want you to write the complete description. Seasons. And then of sages, of all the sages, Vyas. Of great sages, Bhrigu. Sages among the demigods, Devarishi, Narada. Among priests, Krishna is Brihaspati. Perfected beings, Kapila. Great thinkers, Sukracharya. So there's a lot of vibhutis there to remember. It becomes confusing. But we have to try to be familiar with these things. And so you definitely want to read them over and know them, because for sure in the closed book they will be asking these kind of things.
Maharaj, why is Shukracharya referred here to as Oshana or?
Ishana, it's another name.
Yeah. I mean, any specific cause or any specific significance of this name? Any specific cause or significance of this name?
No, I don't know. I mean, Ushana, I don't know the meaning of the word Ushana myself. You know, do you know what's it mean, Ushana? What's the meaning?
Sorry, Maharaj, I don't know.
I don't know. We know about Shukracharya. You know what Prabhupada said, Shukra, he said that means semen. So Shukracharya is in that line. He's in the guru of the Daita. He's the guru of the demons, but it's a seminal line of gurus. And Prabhupada said that's not our process. That the demons, they have that process. Their gurus are all by birth. By birth, you know. Sukracharya has his sons. His sons were teaching in the Gurukula, and Prahlad was a student of the two sons of Shukracharya. So Sukra is semen. But I don't know about Ushana. I don't know what that name means. But he's a great thinker. He's a great personality. And so he's mentioned there in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna appreciates. Instead of great thinkers, I am Shukracharya. And then animals. Animals, horses, Uchishrava, elephants, Airavrata, cows, Surabi, serpents, Vashuki. Not very difficult ones, those are kind of easier ones to remember. Uchishrava and Ayuravrata, churn from the ocean of milk, and Surabhi, and Vashuki, and then Ananta, many hooded nagas, Ananta. Of fish, I am the shark. Of beasts, I am the lion. Of birds, Garuda. So those are easier ones. Philosophical truths. Of the senses, Krishna says, I am the mind, the living entity's heart, the super soul. Of poetry, I am Gayatri. Of letters, I am the letter A. Compound words, the jewel compound. Spiritual science. Of science, I am the spiritual science of the self. Logicians, the conclusive truth. And the Samaveda hymns, the Brihad Sama. Those are more difficult ones, some of them. Logicians, the conclusive truth. Vedic mantras, vibrations, the transcendental Om. Sacrifices, the chanting of the holy name. And the Vedas, Samaveda. So a question. Previously, devotees used to employ various transcendental devices to distribute books by hook or by crook. What is the proper understanding of book distribution? How, on some occasions, has scripture been misused in this respect? And we can refer to verse number 36 in this chapter. Right? Somebody could read verse number 36.
Dyutam chalyatam tejas tejasvinamaham jaya asmi vyavasaya asmi sattvam sattvatam aham. I am also the gambling of cheats, and of the splendid I am the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong.
All right, so you can see why we're asking this question. You can see the implication there. So have any of you distributed books before?
Yes, Maharaj. I remember one pastime in the times of Srila Prabhupada that when devotees were distributing books, they used to say that using that money to fund poor children in Bangladesh. And when someone told Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, so that's where the money should go. So something like that happened during those days.
Yes. So is that all right?
I'm not sure, Maharaj. I think you should guide us on this.
Well, you know, sometimes it's difficult to distribute books straightforwardly, just on the basis of the book. If you try to distribute just a book on the basis of the book, people will all say, oh no, I have so many books, oh no, I don't want to read the book. It's very difficult sometimes to get people to take an interest in the book. But you come along with a picture and you tell them, you know, we're doing this, you know, like in the UK. In the UK, they have a very big program of prasadam distribution. And they go out to different areas, they go to the colleges, and they go to places where people are sleeping out and so on. And they distribute a lot of prasadam. It's very well known. And they have vehicles, and they have these bicycles with the hot pots, and they take the food around and they distribute. So sometimes the devotees who are distributing books, they'll simply say, yeah, we're fundraising for the food distribution program, can you give a donation, and show some pictures of what you're doing. And people, they like to help, they'll give something. And then when they give something, then you can always say, and here, let me give you a book as well, this is one of the books we're giving away. And they're happy, they get a book, Some people are happy, not everybody's happy. But sometimes, like that, it's easier to get people to give money for something like food distribution, or even cow protection, or something like that, than to just sell them a book directly. But to ask people to buy a book directly, people always, they hum and haw, that they're not so willing to get a book, So that's why devotees do these kind of things, that it makes it much easier for us to distribute books, to give books. But there are cases where it goes wrong, sometimes like, you may get ask people, give a donation for cow protection or something like that, or maybe, what some kind of project you're doing, food distribution or something, and it may not say Hare Krishna, but then when you give them the book, and they see the book, and they say, oh, Hare Krishna, and they say, no, I don't want it, give me my money back, They'll say like that. They'll say, no, I don't want this book. Give me my money back. I don't want to give to Hare Krishna. So you get people like that, you have to be a bit careful. Yeah, Prabhupada did want us to distribute the books. Honestly, I remember I was in New York at the time, and there was one devotee, a Prabhupada disciple, and he was called the Incarnation of Book Distribution. Prabhupada had personally said that he is an incarnation of book distribution. His name was Tripurari Swami. He became a Swami, and he's still a Swami, but he's outside of ISKCON now, independent of ISKCON. So anyway, he was an incarnation of book distribution, and I remember Prabhupada saying to him, in front of everyone in the temple room, he said, people should want to take the book. You should not force them. Because we did get that kind of reputation that we were really pushy and forcing people to take the book. So Prabhupada said, people should want to take the books. You should not force them. So sometimes, in order to get people to take books, sometimes you have to encourage them by speaking about different other activities like food distribution or cow protection or whatever other things you want to bring in. And we find usually it's much easier to get people interested than if you just show them the book. Because not everyone's interested in reading our books, philosophical thing, not so stimulating for people. But Prabhupada wanted the books distributed. So, is it wrong or is it right?
Yes, Maharaj, it was absolutely right. Whatever Prabhupada wanted, it was absolutely right.
And Prabhupada, maybe you've read that purport in the Bhagavatam where it talks about cheating, and it said that great souls cheat for a great cause. And the example are there, but the example was how Vidura and Dhritarashtra cheated Maharaj Yudhisthira. Maharaj Yudhisthira said, I have been cheated by these great souls. you know, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, along with Vidura, they left home without telling Maharaj Yudhisthira. So Maharaj Yudhisthira, when he found out that they'd gone, he said, I have been cheated by these great souls. So there's a purport there, and Prabhupada talks about how great souls cheat for a great cause. And can you think of some examples in scriptures, other people who cheated?
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, example of Srila Prabhupada only. Srila Prabhupada said that I have cheated you all. So if I have told you everything in the beginning that you know, all of you will not have become devotees. So I have cheated you to make you devotees.
Really? I never heard this before. Prabhupada cheated us
Cheated us to
to make us devotees? Really? I don't
I think
know.
Prabhupada told I tricked you all.
Huh? What did that?
Prabhupada told I tricked you all.
I
Instead
tricked
of
you all.
I don't remember, I think so.
I don't know. I don't know this. I know Prabhupada tricked his family. He tricked the family. He asked his wife. He said, "Do you want tea or me?" Right? He asked his wife, "Do you want tea or me?" So his wife said, "I'd rather have tea. I'd rather have tea than you." So Prabhupada said, "Okay, that's it," and he left home. So he walked out. He got out of the house. But there are other examples. Great souls also.
Would
Yes.
we say that Lord Krishna himself had cheated the residents of Braj, like gopis?
How did he cheat them?
Actually, gopis had never desired that Krishna should leave them, but Krishna still still left them, and he had promised that he would come back. He would come back, but he never came back.
Um,
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's not a common example, which is, it's not commonly understood that Krishna cheated the gopis.
Okay, Maharaj.
But
Maharaj, Krishna, yeah, sorry, sir.
yes, who cheated?
Krishna cheated Duryodhana when he was going naked in front of her mother to get his whole body of Vajra. He tricked him or cheated him to, saying that you must not go naked in front of your mother.
Yeah, that wasn't actually trickery. That was just his Yeah, he did that. Yeah, he protected. That was Krishna protecting the Pandavas. That he didn't let Duryodhana get that benediction from his mother. He got Duryodhana to wear something, so part of his body didn't get protected. Okay, any others?
And Maharaj, one more example, like Parshuram, cheating his own father Jamadagni in a way that, he knew that he would be able to, again give back life to his mother, even if Parshuram killed his mother.
Okay.
Maharaj, Mohini Murti cheating the demons.
Okay, yes. Mohini Murti cheated the demons when she's distributing the nectar.
And also Indra cheated Prithvi Maharaj when he was performing the sacrifices. So he was like taking away, kidnapping all the horses that were there.
What was Indra doing?
He was taking away all the horses, like when Maharaj was doing when he was doing the Ashwamedh Yajna, that he was fearful that if he performs 100 yajnas, then he might take his position.
Okay, Indra was trying to protect his position. He wouldn't let him perform Ashwamedha sacrifice. Yeah?
Maharaj, there is one example of Garud Dev when he wanted to free her mother from the curse free her mother Kayadu from the curse. So he brought the nectar, and he already planned before that when he brought the nectar in for snakes, nagas. So he said that before taking, you should all take bath. So they went for bathing, and meanwhile Indra came and took the nectar back.
Okay, good. Yeah, very nice.
Maharaj Pandavas, I mean, sorry, Kauravas cheating Abhimanyu, I mean, attacking him all together, all everyone together, or even cheating Sam, the son of Krishna, when he tried to kidnap the daughter of Duryodhan.
Samba tried to kidnap the daughter of Duryodhan,
Yeah,
Lakshmana.
so yeah, Lakshmana. So they all attacked him together. Similarly, Kauravas attacked together Abhimanyu alone. So this is in a way cheating because that's against the rules of warfare.
Yeah, that was not fair. But
And
there's transcendental trickery. Transcendental trickery. Prabhupada said, great souls cheat for a great cause. So there are examples of great souls cheating, just like Sanatana Goswami cheated to get out of jail. When he was put in jail by the Nawab, he was held in the prison, but Sanatan cheated. He bribed the jailer, and he told the jailer, I'm going to go to Mecca, and I will offer my prayers in Mecca for you. And so the jailer was impressed, and so he let Sanatan out of jail. And Sanatan, of course, bribed him, gave money to him. So that was transcendental trickery. Sanatan used that to get out of jail. And Ramanujacharya also, transcendental trickery, cheated his wife. The father wants you, you have to go immediately. So she went rushing home. And then Ramanuja went and took sannyas. He wanted to get free of family, the bondage of family life. So he tricked his wife to go home to her father. At that time he took sannyas.
Maharaj, one more
Versus
example, when Krishna make in the war of Kurukshetra, there was daytime, but Krishna somehow from his and one of the energy, he made like the sun has set. So when he wanted to kill the Karna, Arjuna took the vow that if before sunset I will kill him. So like
Yes. Yeah. Right, he made the sun set, and they thought the sun had set. And then what happened?
and then he came
Devarath.
out, and Arjuna killed him. Or then again, sun was there, so he said that you have cheated me. The war is over. No, war is not over yet. It's sun. It is daytime only.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
we can find, yeah, Maharaji, we can find instances of cheating in Mahabharata by Krishna. So even Ashwathama incident, I recall that Ashwathama elephant was killed, and he said Ashwathama has been killed,
Yes.
which is Dronacharya's son. So that was also cheating. So that
But,
gave a, yeah. But there are many instances that Krishna tricked actually. I don't know whether it's cheating, but it's just tricking someone, right? Slightly lighter version of cheating.
yes, right. So anyway, of course, if he uses tricking methods to distribute our books, sometimes it doesn't do us any good. It gets us a bad name, a bad reputation. And people think, oh, these people, they lie and cheat you. They tell you so many things. Not true. That's not good. You know, as a spiritual movement, we should be honest. Right? We should be honest. We should be straightforward in dealing with them. Of course, now our movement is much more established. Now we can distribute books. It's much easier to distribute books. You know, in the beginning, we used to support our movement by book distribution. And temples like Vrindavan and Juhu, these temples were built by book distribution. The money to build these temples actually came from Sankirtan, from book distribution, from devotees going out on the streets and distributing books, and all the money would go to the BBT, and the BBT would give the money to put these buildings up. So nowadays, of course, our movement is much more established, and we have a congregation, and the congregation's all there working, and they like to give money, and they support the book distribution. Anyway,
Maharaji, can I ask a question on book distribution? This is not related to what we are discussing, but I'm just curious to know that what I have seen is in December month, there is this book distribution month, right? In all ISKCON temples. And, everyone has targets to complete. And people are like putting all their energies towards book distribution. And I don't know what means they follow to meet the targets. Now, I asked a question to one of the devotees that targets are generally seen in corporate world. Why is it in the spiritual world, right? Because it leads to competition. And they said that competition is it is allowed in Krishna's world because Krishna is absolute. Now I get totally zapped by these answers that I thought that spiritual world should be non-competitive, right? Like, what's the point of going from one competitive world to another competitive world? But the answer that came was, it's all allowed in Krishna's world. So please give me your views, because I was not satisfied with that answer while I said, okay. But there is so much of competition and meeting the targets of one temple and, to another temple. I don't know. So I thought I'll just check with you.
yes, generally we do have competitions like that, and Prabhupada said transcendental competition. It's transcendental competition. It's for the service of Krishna. It's, just like you say there's competition in the material world, there's competition for our own sense gratification. But book distribution and that desire to distribute literature, that is a transcendental desire, and that is nothing to do with sense gratification. So the devotees, they take great pleasure in sacrificing their time and energy to go out and distribute books. And generally, of course, as you say, the month of December is a good time because it's a holiday season, Christmas, a festive season, and people like to give presents. People are in good moods. It's a good time. We find it easy, the best time of the year to distribute books. People spend more money that month, in the month of December, than what gets spent the whole year practically. And so it's a very good time for people to go out and try to distribute books. So we do try to take advantage of that season to encourage people. And because we're somewhat motivated and materialistic, that idea of competition encourages people to try harder, to do better, for the service of Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. In the material world, it's all for our own sense gratification. Maybe if you can get the most sales, you get more salary, or you get a commission or something. But in Krishna consciousness, if we can distribute more books, then it's recognized that, oh, you've done very well. You've distributed so many literatures for the pleasure of Krishna. So it is transcendental competition.
Yeah.
And,
thank you.
And in Prabhupada's time, as I said, Prabhupada wanted to print books like Srimad Bhagavatam, and in order to print it, it was coming out one volume at a time, so we had to distribute it. Prabhupada initially came to America with the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, which had been printed in India. So he brought that to America with him, and it was printed in India. It wasn't in good it wasn't a good printing, and there was a lot of typos in it, wrong. So it had to all be edited. The Bhagavad Gita also, that took time to get printed. Initially, the Bhagavad Gita, you know, Prabhupada wanted a publisher, and somehow they were really lucky, that Macmillan wanted an edition of Bhagavad Gita, and so they took Prabhupada's text. But when they saw it, they thought it was too voluminous. So they edited it down, and they came out with an abridged version of the Bhagavad Gita. So that was the first Bhagavad Gita. There was no Sanskrit, and purports were all cut down. And we were using that for some time. And so we had to distribute these books in order to get more books. In order to get the big book printed, to get it printed with Sanskrit, we had to distribute the small book. And when they saw that there was a demand, then they reprint it, and they'd print it with Sanskrit and with more purports. So initially the Bhagavad Gita, even with Sanskrit and full purports, it was printed by Macmillan. And then we were distributing it, and then when they sold out, then we said we're not going to buy any more. So they didn't print any more. So then we could print it ourselves. So it's complicated. And so Srimad Bhagavatam, it was one volume at a time, and you know, we had to distribute the one volume to make so that we could raise funds to print another volume, and gradually, volume by volume, we got the whole Srimad Bhagavatam printed. So we had to distribute these books, and in the beginning we were distributing Back to Godhead magazines, but we were distributing Back to Godhead magazines. It was very difficult to distribute a big book. We just couldn't imagine. It was so difficult that nobody wanted a big book, and it was expensive as well. So we mostly would distribute Back to Godhead magazines. But then Prabhupada said he wanted the big books distributed because there was an accumulation. The books were accumulating more and more. And Prabhupada said, you have to distribute these books. So then the devotees were all thinking how to distribute, and we started going out and trying to distribute them. And then when we distributed them, Prabhupada was pleased, because then we could print more, and could print more and more. And that way we got the whole Srimad Bhagavatam printed, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita printed. So it was really important for us to distribute the books. So Prabhupada encouraged that competition, and someone even came out with a newsletter, and they would put the scores and the names of the different temples, and even taught the devotee who distributed the most books. And so in this way, Prabhupada encouraged it. He said, yes, okay, very good. And they would give prizes and recognition for a devotee who sold the most books. And Prabhupada actually said book publishing is our family business. And Prabhupada said everyone should learn how to distribute books. He said, this is like our family business. And so publishing, and Prabhupada said that he learned everything about being a devotee from his own father, except for one thing. He said he learned book publishing from his spiritual master. His spiritual master had published books, and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was very pleased when books were published. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was publishing a daily newspaper. They had a daily newspaper they were publishing every day, and devotees would go out and distribute it, just for a few paisa, of course, you know. But he was encouraging like that. This is propaganda, you know. And Prabhupada gives an example. He said, just like in India, you have communism. And he said, how did communism come to India? He said, the Russians didn't come to preach communism, but they sent books. They sent books to India about communism. And the Indian people got books about Marxism and communist philosophy, and that's how communism came into India. And Prabhupada said the same way, we distribute our books about Krishna consciousness, and people can become Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
So it was really important. And Prabhupada even said about China, in Prabhupada's time nobody could go to China, but Prabhupada said just send the books. He said send the books, and the books will create the field for the preaching in the future. So book distribution is really important for us, and to encourage it, you know, that competitive mood helps, makes people more enthusiastic. But we do have to be conscious of how we do it. And you know, nowadays, we try to train the devotees. You know, what are you going to say to people? What should you say? What should you not say? And what should you do? What should you not do? These kind of things. And Prabhupada even told a story about his own godbrothers. He said his godbrothers, they used to talk about their own spiritual master. And they would tell about their own spiritual master. They say, our Guru Dev, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he lives on tulsi leaves. He only eats tulsi leaves. And Prabhupada was laughing, and he said, like the, you know, the little, a little trick, you know, just to impress people. So, you know, don't be disturbed about the devotees being competitive.
No, thank you, Maharaj. That was a very nice reply. Thank you. I'm not disturbed. I just challenge the status quo.
Yeah. Well, definitely there's right and wrong ways to do it, you know. We do want to keep the transcendental mood. You know, it should be transcendental. It shouldn't be material. Shouldn't be, you know, for our own sense. It's for the pleasure of Krishna.
Yeah.
And some devotees are really very, very dedicated to this book distribution. There's some devotees who've been doing it their whole life practically since they become devotees, and they just can't live without distributing books. And I say here in Mayapur also, here in Mayapur, we have devotees who, you know, they were book distributors for many years in their own country, and they used to go on the streets. Now they're here in Mayapur, they put a book table out, and they have a book table, and they sell books at the book table every day. And people come by and talk to them, and that, you know, they enjoy it. It's their life. It's their life. They're talking to people and telling them about Krishna and showing them the books. And it's so pleasing, you know, when you distribute a book to someone, you feel so good, you know. It's so satisfying to think that you see somebody get a book. Oh, they bought a Bhagavad Gita. Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, you know. And Prabhupada told it about books. He said you distribute like one book. If one book goes into a country like China, it will be read by 100 people. It will be just like in Russia. And when in Prabhupada's time, because Russia was all closed up, it was all communist. And so the devotees were smuggling books into Russia. And the books were being reprinted and copied and everything. And people were, they were just mad to get the books. They just wanted them so much. So, you know, that sometimes there is really a big demand for book distribution. People want these books. Here in India as well, you know, sometimes we give away the books freely almost, and people come, they line up, they're so eager to get a book, They want one so badly. You know, just like they have summer sales in the stores, and before the sale, people will line up, they sleep outside the store the whole night to get into the store first. So people people want our books. In the same way, sometimes you get people like that. They come, they're so eager to get a book. Okay, so book distribution. The
Hare
heart.
Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj,
Yes.
can you please elaborate a little on this? Like you said that definitely a devotee has to follow the path of honesty, but for the sake of service or like distribution, book distribution, let's say, like how can one like I have experienced situations that by little bit of manipulation, it helps to distribute more books. So can we do such things, or like we should try to stay honest as much as possible?
Well, you have to consider what are you doing? Are you doing something which is going to bring our movement into disrepute? Is it something which you're going to be criticized for? You have to consider the consequences of what you're doing.
Like Maharaj, sometimes there are some devotees in our group who like to enter, like we go to schools for preaching, and then they don't allow people to enter the schools like that. So they sometimes lie that we are the ex-students of the schools, and and they get entry very easily. And then later on, nobody is able to recognize that what was the fact, but just that they are able to enter the school, then they can convince them by their philosophy. Small things.
What, they enter the school and then what do they do when they get in?
They get the appointment from the principal because if the principal gets to know that the ex students are here, so sometimes the principal is ready to meet them, because the principal usually does not remember all the kids in the school. So the principal meets them, greets them properly, and sometimes they allow them to put a stall in the school fest.
Oh, very good. That's very good. Very nice.
So just a small manipulation, like actually it was a lie actually, but it helped to distribute lot many books there.
Yes, sometimes we would go on Sankirtan and then the policeman would come and say, have you got permission? And I would say, yes, we have permission. You know? And then they say, okay. And they say, all right, you have permission. You know, who gave us permission? I said, well, Krishna gave us permission. Spirit Prabhupada gave us permission, you know. But the policeman didn't ask who gave me permission. He just said, do you have permission? So I said, yes, I have permission. And the policeman was happy. All right, you have permission. Okay. So, was I wrong or right? You know, on the absolute platform, we had permission. Sometimes we have to do these things in order to fulfill the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All right?
Like we just have to be careful that we should not be caught red-handed.
That's right. You should not be caught. You should not be caught. You should not be found out. That's important. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you, Maharaj.
be careful with that. Okay. Okay. Here's one more exercise which is important for us. How Krishna's vibhutis help you to remember Krishna. And select two vibhutis mentioned in the 10th chapter, specifically useful for preaching, and discuss their significance. So I think this is a good exercise. Please consider, take a partner. How many people are here?
14, Maharaj.
Oh, 14. Okay, so 7 pairs. Do you want to do it in pairs or do you want threes?
Maharaj, it will be 2 to 3 people in a room, I think, because sometimes devotees.
Okay, I'll leave it to you to organize. 2 or 3s. So how Krishna's vibhutis help you to remember Krishna?
Devotees, please accept the request that you would have got for the breakout rooms.
42.
Are you don't have a group Mataji?
She came back to read the question, Maharaj.
Oh, she came back to read the question, okay. Can, can she read it okay? Or did
Yes,
I?
Maharaj.
What's that? Whose son's name is Prahlad?
My son's name is Prahlad Maharaj. So I was telling Mataji the first question, that how can you remember Krishna? And he's very naughty, Maharaj. Very naughty. So I was telling Mataji that I keep on, calling him, I think 100 times a day at least. And I keep on remembering that Prahlad Maharaj is best in Daityas and he is the representative of Krishna. That probably reminds me that I have to chant my rounds, do my duties, do my Gayatri on time.
Good. Yeah.
And maybe because of him, we might be able to improve step by
Yes,
step, little by little.
we hope so. Definitely want to always improve. We always want to go forward.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, I think we have to go back to the room. Everyone's back in the room, is it?
Everyone's back to the main section, Maharaj.
Are they?
Everybody's back to the main section.
Oh, everyone's back. Okay. So let's hear what you discussed, Who would like to volunteer first? Let's see, who have we got here? Yeah, Ruchi. Ruchi Gupta. Gupta. Yeah, Ruchi Mataji? Did you...
Hare Krishna Maharaji. Ji Maharaj.
Did the Vibhutis help you to remember Krishna?
Yes, Maharaj, Vibhutis help us to remind that Krishna is best of everything. For example, among the light, he is sun, like that. All the Vibhutis, he is the best of everything. So it helps us to remember how great Krishna is.
Okay, you remember the greatness of Krishna. So which particular Vibhutis did you think are good for preaching with?
We discussed about Prahlad Maharaj. Like this can be used in our preaching. For example, Prahlad Maharaj is best in the background of a person does not matter. He is from the Daityas community, but still he is the best among. He's one of the 12 Mahajans, and this is how we can preach to people that your background and everything else, the surroundings, does not really matter, because he was into so much adverse conditions and circumstances. He was worshipping Lord Krishna. And similarly, we can also remember Krishna all the time, irrespective of our surroundings and circumstances. We can always remember Krishna and worship him.
Is your son also called Prahlad?
No, my son's name is Krishna and my daughter is Madhvi.
Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you. Yes, and what about Araja Prabhu?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So, like the first answer, the question is same that that Vibhutis helps us to remember Krishna, and especially generally at any point of time in the day, two things, sun and moon, they are always visible. In the daytime, the sun, and in the evening time, the moon is always visible. So this Vibhutis always help us remember Krishna. And regarding from the preaching point of view, so one thing is, that Ganga is very famous amongst everyone, and everyone knows that Ganga is one of the most purifying rivers. Especially in India, everyone knows about this thing. So from preaching point of view, we can use this analogy that Ganga is among all the rivers, Ganga is a supreme and she is a representative of Krishna. And in fact, even Ganga emanates from the lotus feet of Krishna himself. So one is this one, and the other one is science. So especially in the modern time, everyone is somehow or other, especially if we talk about the intellectual class, they're into science, different kinds of science. So we can conversate with them that what is the highest science, and we can tell them how spiritual science of the self is the highest science among all the different fields of science existing. In fact, in Prabhupada also in Massachusetts asked that where is the department of soul. So we can use this thing, spiritual science of self, and that the main point regarding spiritual science of self is that we we are a living entity, we are a soul, and we are part and parcels of Krishna. So these two things, I guess, we can, I mean, preferably, I would like to use the most in terms of preaching.
Yes, science always changes, you know. What science today, then it goes out of date, then they have a new science, you know. They had corpuscular theory, then molecular theory, then atomic theory, you know. There's so many different theories, one higher and none. So science is so temporary. What is the latest science today? It goes out of date in a few years. Science is, but the science of the soul, that's eternal science, that's the real science. That science never changes. So that's the benefit of the science of the soul. Others, you know, physics, the chemistry and all that, that stuff's always going to be changing. But the science of the soul, that's eternal knowledge. Krishna spoke it 5,000 years ago, and the same knowledge was spoken millions of years ago to the sun god. Eternal knowledge. That's a nice point you brought up, Prabhu. Very nice about science. Good one. Yeah, good to use in preaching.
But Maharaj, the example that you gave, that this science never changes, that was that practical application that I found it more beneficial. That, you know, I can use this example in a better manner. That all the sciences at any point of time will change, but this science of the self is never going to change. It has remained the same from the past infinity, and it will remain the same in the future in the infinity also.
Yes, right. Hare Krishna. All right, let's see who, and then we have, who is this? This is Sampada? Huh? Yes?
Maharaj, I wasn't a part of the discussion. I was supporting it in the breakout rooms.
Oh, okay, right, you were there. Okay, then Tarun Prabhu, would you like to tell us what you discussed?
Maharaj, like from the chanting, I am the japa. So we can tell that the, like, whatever we are speaking of the sound, like sound is the basis of creation, and in sound, he is the holy, like Lord is the holy name. That, so this is how we can understand, like, and we can tell that uh, everything is produced from sound in this material world. And when, like, and the best way to utilize this power of sound, like sevan mukhe hi jiva do, so best use of tongue is to taste prasad and to chant the holy names of Lord.
Jai. Yes, best use of the tongue. Very nice. But as far as the vibhutis go, you talk of chanting, of sacrifices. I am the chanting of the holy name. Huh? That's a nice one. In the Kali Yuga, the real sacrifice is the chanting of the holy name. So we want to do the japa yagya. Every day we do the yagya, right? We do yagya every day, chanting of the holy name. Yes, that's an important vibhuti to use in preaching. Yes? And how do you feel that the vibhutis help you to remember Krishna?
Like what vibhutis are showing us that like the best of everything is Krishna. Be it Daityas, be it like of all the water bodies and oceans. So whatever best thing that we are seeing, if we are seeing a good quality in a person, if we are seeing the beauty of nature, everything reminds us, should remind us of Krishna. This is what I understand, that this is all like through these vibhutis, because Krishna is unlimited, but in limited time he had to speak, so he symbolized some things. But what we understand, that whatever beautiful thing we are seeing in this creation is just a representation of Krishna.
Okay, yes. Everything which is beautiful or powerful or opulent or wonderful, that is Krishna, due to Krishna.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj, I wanted to add regarding preaching, like, can we use these points that Krishna is saying that I am the Kuvera, Lord of Wealth, I am Yama, the Lord of Death. So like somebody who is suffering a lot in this material world regarding financial problems or health problems, so maybe we can tell them that death and wealth, it's all under the control of Krishna. So if you are worshipping Krishna, you can get relief from such problems.
Yes. Yeah, we hope so. If you worship Krishna, solve all the problems, right? You don't have to, all the demigods, we say you don't have to worship any demigods, just worship Krishna and then all the demigods are satisfied. So we heard about the different devatas which are all mentioned there. So by worshipping Krishna, these demigods, they're all representatives of Krishna. We worship Krishna, they're all taken care of, they're all satisfied. So that's a nice point, Maharaji. Yes, very, very good. Good preaching, yeah. Nice way to preach to the demigod worshippers. All right? Okay, who has not contributed yet? Rukmini, you going to speak something?
Yes, yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, this one, Krishna is sitting in the heart of every living entity. Sarvasya chaham hirdisannavishto. So this is very easy that we see all the devotees, every living being, we see that Krishna is seated in the, and second, I like the sun most, light, the most every day we see sun. These two. In the Paramatma Bhagavan Krishna in the heart. And for preaching purpose, I was able to get this one, Yama. I'm the Yama. So that we should follow. We should really. Uh, we should really accept that when Krishna is saying that I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he is not demanding much, so we should accept him, his superiority. And if we not, that everybody has to meet the death, so he otherwise he will come as a Kal at the end of our life.
Krishna comes as Yama, yeah?
Yama.
Time of death. So for the atheist, God is death.
Yes, Maharaj.
Krishna.
Maharaj, I have a question to ask you, please.
Yes?
Maharaj, I'm not very clear about how to use these vibhutis for remembering Krishna. My confusion is that, let's say, when we say of the sages, Krishna is Bhrigu, then what about the other sages? When we say Krishna is, let's say, the sun or moon, then what about Dhruva planet? I mean, not able to relate to how we can remember. And when Krishna says, "I'm this," then I'm just thinking, what about the others? Then what is the status of others? And why would Krishna only call himself as these? So I'm a little confused about how to remember Krishna through them.
Yes, it's a good point. Yeah, my answer to this is that there could be many, many more vibhutis. And you'll see, before at the end of the chapter, Krishna says, he said, what need is there for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire creation. Yeah, Krishna is just giving some examples to help us to understand how we can see Krishna in the material world. But you can give many more. As you mentioned, you can talk about the Dhruvaloka, you can talk about other great sages. So many different sages are there. The different, there's Patanjali, and there's Gautama, and there's Astavakra, and no, there's so many great sages. You can mention all of the names if you want. But, Krishna, he gave some examples. It's unlimited. It could go on forever. But, the time is limited. So the Bhagavad Gita is also limited. He has to, he put but he put a good number of examples there. Just enough to help us, to give us a taste, to understand that everything which is powerful and opulent and wonderful, that it is actually coming from Krishna. Right? It's mentioned like that at the end of the chapter. I should know the verse, really. There is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulence. So that's an answer to your question, Prabhu, that there are so many other manifestations. Krishna has just spoken a few things to give us a taste, just to help us to understand something of his infinite opulence. But he said there's no end to them. So Bhagavad Gita has to end, it has to finish, right? So he gave us some examples to help us to understand his supreme opulence, his supreme position over everything. So how to see Krishna there in these things? Well, we have to train the mind. We have to understand all of these wonderful and opulent manifestations are Krishna, that they come from Krishna. It's education. It's not that immediately we'll think, oh, this is Krishna. We have to train ourselves. We have to be educated. So the common man, they should read the Bhagavad Gita. And they'll read the Bhagavad Gita and they'll read, oh, among the fish, Krishna is the shark. Among the beasts, he is the lion. Among the trees, he is banyan tree. No, and this way, we start to think of Krishna through these different manifestations. It's an education. Just like when we're children, we don't know. We say, Mommy, what is this? Mother said, oh, this is a table. And we learn, oh, table. So the same way, we're learning from Krishna. Krishna is saying, flowing rivers, I am the Ganga. Of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Of mountains, I am Meru. I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Of mantras, I am Gayatri. Of letters, I am A. Of sages, I am Brigu. So we have to learn these things. We can't just, we can try to guess them, but difficult. Better is we read the Bhagavad Gita and we hear from Krishna and we understand this is a manifestation of Krishna. We have to train our mind to see Krishna in everything. Just like you get a bump on the head, you lose your memory. You cannot remember anything. How do you get your memory back? Well, the doctors, they'll bring everybody, they'll bring your family, they'll bring your friends, and gradually you start to remember. Oh, this is my brother, oh, this is my sister, oh, this is my mom, my dad, like this. Gradually you get your memory back. So the same way we read Bhagavad Gita, gradually we start to understand how Krishna is there in everything. When people would ask Prabhupada, have you seen God, Swamiji? Prabhupada would say, who has not seen God? Krishna said, I am the light of the sun and the moon. Everyone has seen the light of the sun and the moon. Who has not seen God? So like this. So Prabhupada was using the vibhutis. He was showing us how to remember Krishna. So we have to train ourselves, train our mind to think in this way. Is it understood, Prabhu? Yeah, any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead.
Maharaj, can I want to ask a little question. Krishna is saying, I am the alphabet A. So Maharaj, when many years ago, when Krishna gave this knowledge to sun god Vivaswan, so at that time also A was there. How to understand? 5,000 years I can understand, but...
Well, Well, yeah, we're taking the Bhagavad Gita from 5,000 years ago. We're not taking it from the sun god. The Bhagavad Gita, which spoken to the sun god, may not have been quite exactly the same, but the same principle would be there in the Bhagavad Gita spoken to the sun god. It's not that the exact Bhagavad Gita as we know it was spoken to the sun god, but the same philosophy, the same philosophical principles of devotion and surrender to Krishna, that would be there.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. All right, 1041. Someone read?
Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shrimad urjitam eva va tat tad eva vagaccha tvam mama tejosma sambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor.
Jai. Lord Krishna is describing all of these things, all of these different vibhutis, opulent, beautiful, glorious creations. Just a tiny, mama tejo misha sambhavam. Just a tiny spark of my splendor. And, and then the last verse.
अथवा बाहुनयतेन किं ज्ञानतेन तव अर्जुन विष्टाभ्याम idam कृष्णम् एकांशेन स्थितो jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe.
Yes, and what is this thing? What is this ekam shena stitogadat? What is this ekam shena? What is that single fragment? Yes?
He's entering our hearts through super soul.
Yes, right, yes. The super soul, right. You can read the purport. Let's hear the purport. Someone read.
The Supreme The Supreme Lord is represented throughout the entire material universes by his entering into all things as the Super Soul. The Lord here tells Arjuna that there is no point in understanding how things exist in their separate opulence and grandeur. He should know that all things are existing due to Krishna's entering them as Super Soul. From Brahma, the most gigantic entity, on down to the smallest ant, all are existing because the Lord has entered each and all and is sustaining them. There is a mission that regularly propounds that worship of any demigod will lead one to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Supreme Goal. But worship of demigods is thoroughly discouraged herein because even the greatest demigods like Brahma and Shiva represent only the part of the opulence of the Supreme Lord. He is the origin of everyone and no one is greater than him. He is asamarudva, which means that no one is superior to him and that no one is equal to him. In Padma Puran, it is said that one who considers the Supreme Lord Krishna in the same category with demigods, be they even Brahma or Shiva, becomes at once an atheist. If, however, one thoroughly studies the different descriptions of the opulences and expansions of Krishna's energy, then one can understand without any doubt the position of Lord Sri Krishna and can fix his mind in the worship of Krishna without deviation. The Lord is all-pervading by the expansion of his partial representation, the Super Soul, who enters into everything that is. Pure devotees therefore concentrate their minds in Krishna consciousness in full devotional service. Therefore, they are always situated in the transcendental position. Devotional service and worship of Krishna are very clearly indicated in this chapter in verses 8 through 11. That is the way of pure devotional service. How can one attain the highest devotional perfection of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been thoroughly explained in this chapter. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great Acharya in disciplic succession from Krishna, concludes his commentary on this chapter by saying, Yat Shakti Lesat Suryadya Bhavanti Ati Ugra Tejasah Yad Amshen Dhritam Vishwam Sa Krishno Dashame Archate. From the Lord Krishna's potent energy, even the powerful sun gets its power. And by Krishna's partial expansion, the whole world is maintained. Therefore, the Lord Krishna is worshipable. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purpose to the 10th chapter.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, very nice purport by Prabhupada concluding the 10th chapter. So, we explained the value of knowledge of Krishna's Vibhuti Yoga.
Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj, can you please explain little bit like, you asked the question. So the Supreme Lord is represented throughout the entire material universe by his entering into all living things as a super soul. Can you please tell one or two sentences for this?
The Supreme Lord enters into everything as the super soul. Well, that is the nature of the super soul, that the super soul is there within everything, right? Within every atom, the Lord is there, he's pervading everything. The life of all that lives, the life is coming because the super soul is also there. Along with the Jivatma, there's also the super soul. The Lord also comes, he accompanies the living entity, the individual living entity, in the form of the super soul. It's not just simply one soul, but there are two souls within the heart of the living entity. There's the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So the Paramatma is there along with the Jivatma. So long as we're here within this material world, every living entity is a spirit soul, and that spirit soul is accompanied with the Paramatma. So the super soul is there in the hearts of all living entities, within the trees and the plants and the birds and the fish, as well as all the humans and the demigods also. The Lord is there within everyone. And not only is in the heart of the living entities, but actually is the super soul. He is within everything, in every atom, he's pervading everything. That is the nature of the super soul, that it is pervading. It's, this material world is Krishna's energy, and Krishna manifests this whole material world, and he uses the super soul to maintain it.
Thank you, Maharaj. That this is this you were talking about, right? This is a single fragment of Krishna, which Krishna pervades and supports how the entire universe.
Right, the super soul is the expansion coming from Sankarshan. Is it from Sankarshan? Sankarshan is expanded from Balaram. Balaram is expanded from Krishna. So you can see the super soul. It's a tiny fragment, right? We thought, the super soul, just a minute, is Shirodakashai Vishnu, right? Shirodakashai Vishnu. You have Sankarshan, and then from Sankarshan you get the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva Sankarshan Aniruddha Pradyumna, and then you get the second Chaturvyuha again, and then from the Vasudeva you get the Karanodakashaya Vishnu, who's laying in the causal ocean. And then from Karanodakashaya Vishnu, you get Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, who's entered into each universe. And then from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, you get Shirodakashaya Vishnu, who is in Swetadweep. Swetadweep, which is in each universe, is a Swetadweep there, and Shirodakashaya Vishnu is there. And that Shirodakashaya Vishnu becomes a super soul within the heart of all living entities. And that super soul is pervading and supporting the entire creation. So yes, it's a spark, it's a tiny fragment. The Shirodakshaya Vishnu is coming from the other Purusha avatars. And the Purusha avatars, they're all coming from Lord Krishna originally. So it's a tiny spark of the creation.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah, Maharaj, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Maharaj, like Krishna is existing as super soul, you know, in every atom. We see the words Andanta Rasnam Parmanu Chayanta Rasnam. So
Yes.
in this regard, I wanted to ask that in preaching, especially to the, you know, students of science backgrounds. So can we say that, like we hear that in the atom, what scientists have assumed is that there's a nucleus in the center of atom, and there is protons there, and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus in the atom. This is what we hear, Maharaj, in science, especially technical science. So can we say that because Krishna is existing as in the atom as the super soul, as a consequence of this, the electrons are revolving around the nucleus, or basically the centrifugal force required for the electrons to revolve around the atom or the nucleus. That force is there because of that energy is there because of Krishna existing as the super soul. Can we use this analogy example?
You could do. Yeah. I've never heard it before, but I don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, Maharaj, I got it. Thank you, Maharaj. And one more thing I wanted to know that like wherever a super soul is there, a soul is there. So does it mean in every atom a soul also exists, a living entity also exists, just like a super soul exists?
No. No, doesn't mean that. The super soul is there in every atom, but it's not that there must be also a living entity also there.
Okay.
Because the living entity, if the living entity is there, then there's the Jivatma is also there, right? If it's a living entity. So the Jivatmas are not everywhere. And the Jivatma, along with the super soul, they have to have a body. They have to have a particular body, and that body will have consciousness. Of course, the consciousness will vary depending on the species of life. But they have to have a body and they have to have consciousness. And then the living entity is there along with the super soul. Two birds. It's like two birds in the tree. So the body's like the tree, and the two birds, the two souls. So with the atom and the material energy, the atoms are, the Lord is everywhere in the form of the super soul is all pervading everything, but that doesn't mean that everything is a living entity. No.
Got it, Maharaj.
The Lord is pervading everything, maintaining it. That is how He maintains the entire creation, through the super soul.
Okay. Yeah, Maharaj. And Maharaj, one more question in the same regard. So generally, like we hear that in the modern science, we see that the atom is divisible, and we see that there is a nucleus that exists. Of course, these are all mathematical idealizations because nothing has been perceived. This is all theory as of now. But that's what science says as of now, that atom is divisible and there are, this nucleus, protons, and electrons. But in terms of spirituality or in terms of Vedic science, we hear that the atom can be divided into something. We only hear that atom is the last element. And so I wanted to know that in this regard, sometimes the people do argue, especially from the technical background, that science is spiritual science is limited. It only has reached as far as the atom, whilst modern science has reached and broken down the atom also into protons, electrons, and nucleus. So how to reply to them in this regard?
Yeah, modern science, it's all dealing with matter, right? It's all dealing with the material energy. Although they talk about atoms and they talk about, You could say also the DNA and the RNA and all of these different protons and neutrons and electrons, it's all there, but it's all matter. It's material energy. We have to understand where does this, where is this material energy from, and who is actually overseeing the arrangements. As you said, that there are laws of material nature, that energy can be transformed, but cannot be destroyed. So there's energy. We have where the energy of when they split the atom, they do things like that. They're still trying to understand the workings of the material energy. You've got Einstein's atomic theory and the different levels of what he talks about, his theory of the energy,
the relativity.
Yeah, relativity. You could say relativity. There's a lot. People were, scientists have been discovering these different things. They have things like talk about Newton's laws of motion, or Archimedes' principle, some of the law of flotation and things like this. And then you have laws of thermodynamics and these different things. Who arranged all these things? Who's the lawmaker behind that? They recognize there are different laws with the material nature, but they don't recognize who's actually behind it, who's controlling the material nature. So this is the failure of modern science. Although working with the different elements of the material nature, they never seem to understand who has actually provided all these different elements. Where did it all come from, and how is all so systematically arranged with different laws of nature? So we do try to preach to the people on a higher level, to give them some scientific understanding. We want them to understand that there's the supreme scientist who's behind everything, and that is actually Lord Krishna. He's a real scientist. Other people, we're just discovering and trying to learn about science. We discover laws. We don't make the laws, but who makes the laws? Who arranges all these things? So atoms and elements and particles, all of these things are there. You can go on analyzing them endlessly. You come down to DNA and RNA and all of these different things. And they say this is the basis of life. But did they create life? Were they able to create life from DNA and RNA? It took them so many years. It took so many years and so much money and so many great brains, and then they come up with the DNA and the RNA, but can they create life now? No. They're still trying to understand the origin of life. In the course of time, everyone died. The scientists also died. Einstein also left the world. All right, so we explained the value of knowledge of Krishna's Vibhuti Yoga, particularly in relation to these three verses, the first verse, the 7th verse, and the 19th verse. That it's important for the common man to understand these things, and then they can more appreciate Lord Krishna, to see that there is opulence there within the world. It's not all just abstract and uncontrolled. but there's something in every different species of life. There's one species which is supreme, right? We said, in the jungle, the lion is the king. In the ocean, the shark is supreme. So many different things to be understood in relation to Krishna's Vibhuti Yoga, and will help us to understand Krishna's supreme position. So connection between chapter 9 and chapter 10. Well, we pointed out about the opulences that they were mentioned in the 7th chapter, in the 8th chapter, and the 9th chapter. There were gleamings about Krishna's opulences. Now in the 10th chapter, the opulences are presented in full. We also heard, at the end of the 9th chapter, we heard the most confidential knowledge was to engage our mind in thinking of Krishna. So now in the 10th chapter, we're hearing more, how we can think of Krishna through everything in the material world, how everything, all the different phenomena of nature, that it's all Krishna's energy and it's there, and it should remind us of Krishna. And then discussed how the Lord, by his own nature, generates and nourishes the devotion of his unalloyed devotees. By his own nature, he generates and nourishes, right? In verse number 8, how did this work out? What did Krishna say, verse number 8?
Aham sarvasya prabhu matta sarvam pravatite iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvita.
So what does it mean?
That I am the all-pervading. Okay, exactly.
I'm the source of all spiritual and material words. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service.
All right. Yes, the wise who know this will engage in my devotional service. So that's the point. When we actually know that how everything has come from Krishna, then we'll naturally want to worship Krishna and engage in Krishna's service. That naturally follows. We're thinking how great Krishna is. We're so happy to engage in his service. We feel satisfied. We feel pleasure to worship Krishna. Buddha Bhava Samannata. Buddha Bhava. Buddha, you have that knowledge, and Bhava, we have that real mood of devotion. So that's the 8th verse. 8th verse. What about number 9?
Machita madgatpana bodhayanta parasparam katyantascha mam nityam tushanti charamanti cha. This is very superb verse that Krishna says that thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are devoted to me, and they converse. When they converse about me, they feel great satisfaction and feel joy, bliss.
Yes, why?
The answer is the previous verse.
Answer is the previous verse. Why are the devotees feeling so much pleasure in talking about Krishna?
Because they derive great satisfaction.
Yes. But why do we feel that satisfaction?
Because we are spiritual being, and Krishna is the supreme. We are a soul, and he's a super soul. So we will be satisfied. When we serve him. Then only we will get the satisfaction.
No, that's very nice, Maharaji. Yeah, that's a nice realization. Yes, because we're spiritual beings. Yes, and we do have a relationship with Krishna. And when we speak about Krishna and discuss Krishna, it gives pleasure to our soul. And it nourishes our soul, and we feel that satisfaction and that bliss naturally awakens. Nice, very good, yeah. And then number 10.
Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yen ma prayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.
Yes. So how does Krishna generate and nourish the devotion here in that verse?
Krishna gives the understanding to those who are constantly serving him.
Yes. But naturally we will feel nourished and we'll feel inspired. As Krishna gives us more inspiration and more direction, we will feel more and more nourishment, and our devotion will be greatly increased. Right? Yes, good. And number 11.
तेषामेवानुकम्पार्थम् अहम् अज्ञानजं तं नाशामि बाबा वस्तु ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता. So now Krishna is saying, to show my devotees special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy the darkness born of ignorance. How? Like a shining lamp of knowledge.
Yes. So by destroying the ignorance, the darkness in our heart, certainly our devotion will be nourished and we will feel enlivened in our spiritual life. So these 4 verses are very important for us. All right, and the next one, the significance of Arjuna asking Krishna to explain his all-pervading nature. So the significance was for the common man, not really for Arjuna, but for ordinary people who cannot understand the divine nature of Krishna. And they're not able to appreciate the deity in the temple. They're not able to understand the spiritual significance of the holy name. But for those common these people, Krishna explains his all-pervading nature, his impersonal, all-pervading nature, how he's present through so many different phenomena in the material world. And they're unlimited. And then we discussed also seeing Krishna everywhere with reference to Bhagavad Gita 7, 8 to 12 and 10, 19 to 41. So in the 7th chapter, verses 8 to 12, you have also some vibhutis. And then much more here in the 10th chapter. So the idea is to develop this mood, to see Krishna everywhere. There's a verse in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse there which says, "For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me." Have you heard that verse before? It's in chapter 6. If we can see Krishna for one who sees Krishna everywhere and sees everything in me, Lord Krishna speaking, then Krishna said, "I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me." So we want to develop this vision to see Krishna everywhere, with everything. There's nothing separate from Krishna. To think something separate from Krishna, that is illusion. So conclusion, somebody like to read? Maybe we read it before.
The Lord here tells Arjuna that there is no point in understanding how things exist in their separate opulence and grandeur. Grandeur. He should know that all things are existing due to Krishna's entering them as super soul. From Brahma, the most gigantic entity, on down to the smallest ant, all are existing because the Lord has entered each and all and is sustaining them. From Bhagavad Gita 10.42 purport.
And so nothing separate from Krishna. That's Chaturshloki of Bhagavatam also. Everything is Krishna. Everything is Krishna and Krishna's energy. So we're learning from this 10th chapter how to see Krishna's presence everywhere. And how is Krishna there? He's there as the super soul. Of course, we don't see the super soul, but the super soul is there. And because the super soul is there, it's maintaining everything. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So that's...
May I ask one question?
Yes, Prabhu, questions, yeah?
Much like we hear in the last verse purport, that the super soul is represented for the entire material universe by, I mean, that super soul is that one thing, that one fragment that represents the whole of the material creation. So my question is that we also hear that this time, time is also, a manifestation of the super soul feature. So, I wanted to understand two things in this. How the time is a manifestation of the super soul feature, and how this thing, what is the relation of this thing, that time is a manifestation of super soul feature, to this thing, that super soul is the single fragment supporting all of the creation.
Well, time is another impersonal feature of Lord Krishna. It is, how is time moving? We know from Brahma Samhita, it's described how the sun god is mounting the wheel of time. So it is time, Krishna in the form of time, which is taking away everyone's life and is bringing about the gradual destruction of everything in this world. That things become old and deteriorate and decay. It's all due to the influence of time. And that time, that is Krishna. So you're asking, what is the relationship between time and the super soul? Well, you can see time. Time is the phenomena of this material world. There's no time in the spiritual world, although there's the impression of time, but there's no time as we know it. Time in this world decays everything. And that is the nature of this material world, that it's temporary due to the presence of Krishna's time potency, that time potency which is destroying, deteriorating the whole world. So Krishna comes, he appears in many different ways, just as he appears in the four-armed form as Vasudeva, and he comes in many different avatars. He's Anantarup. And so in the same way, he comes also, he expands himself as the super soul, and he also comes, he's also present in the form of time. Time, of course, is one of the 5 things which we're discussing here in the Bhagavad Gita, right? There's Ishvara, there's Jiva, there's Prakriti, and there's time, and then there's also the modes of karma. So time is one of the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita. And we'll see in the 11th chapter, Krishna will display his form of time. It's a form of Krishna, it's another form. Krishna has many forms.
So Maharaj, what is the relation of time with the super soul? I mean, that we hear time is a manifestation of the super soul feature. So what's the relation of this thing?
Well, what can we say? Relation? It's just another form of Krishna. That Krishna comes in that form of time. Time you can see. Well, we don't actually see time, but we see the effect of time, and we try to measure time. We don't actually see time actually, but we know we can see the effects of time. In the same way, the super soul, we don't actually see the super soul. It's there, but we don't see. He's hidden. And in the same way, time, we're not actually seeing time move, but we see the sun move. We see the effects of time. It's just another form of Krishna. Krishna appearing in these different ways through his different potencies. He has his different energies. There's the spiritual energy, there's the external energy, the material energy, and we are the marginal potency. So there's these different energies, and time is another one of these energies of Lord Krishna. It's an impersonal feature of Lord Krishna. You can call it an expansion of the super soul. I don't know. Is that how Prabhupada terms it? Does he say like that? Time is an expansion of the super soul?
Manifestation.
A manifestation of the super. Well, we say the spiritual teacher is also a manifestation of the super soul. The guru is also a manifestation of the super soul. Because the guru is the external manifestation of the super soul. The guru is directing us how to surrender to Krishna. Time is also the manifestation of the super soul. Just like the super soul is giving us knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness, so time is also pointing out to us the nature of this material world and the nature of our material body. And if we're actually observant, if we look and see how the body's growing and how the body's aging, then we will think seriously about solving the problem of birth and death. That we're here in this material world, we're rotting. So in this way, time is also a guru. He's also like the super soul, just as the super soul is the guide, is the overseer and the permitter for the living entity. So time is also acting in a similar manner. He oversees everything and permits everything. Some things time permits, sometimes time doesn't. Right? We're limited by time.
Yes, Maharaj.
So it's a manifestation of Krishna. You say manifestation of the super soul. The super soul is a manifestation of Krishna. Time is also manifestation.
Okay, Maharaj. And Maharaj, just one more thing. So can we also say like this, that like Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he is called the super soul of the universe. So when he enters into a Brahman, that times, everything starts. Otherwise, before that, everything is is in the state of absolute silence. I mean, nothing is happening. Only when Garbhodakshai Vishnu, which is the super soul of the universe, enters, that time there is any motion. So can we say in this regard also that because of the super soul, the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu as a super soul entering the universe, time starts, existing, and everything's, the creation, starts moving.
Yes. Yes, right. Time is one of the elements which enters along with the living entity.
Yes,
right?
Maharaj.
At the beginning of creation, time it also comes, enters there.
Yes, Maharaj.
It's described as being a separate entity, like the three modes of material nature and the ego with in the different modes of nature, and then the living entities and time. They all enter together into the universe, and the creation begins.
Yes, Maharaj. Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
Maharaj, I was also thinking that this coronavirus is also
It's
like
also Krishna. It's also Krishna.
yes, Maharaj.
The Vibhuti, yeah?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, we have to see everything in relation to Krishna. Yeah, nothing separate from Krishna. So coronavirus is certainly also connected to Krishna.
Maharaj,
Maharaj,
all these viruses, HIV, be it HIV or be it corona, are these all different species among the 8.4 million species?
Oh, I don't know about that, Prabhu. Would we say that? Different species? I don't know how they where they put viruses when they talk about the 8,400,000 species. I don't know where the viruses come in.
Yeah, Maharaj, I was also confused about this thing.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I want to thank you that I read this chapter earlier also, but this time the realization is really, really like that I can really try to see Krishna as we have read everywhere. So thank you so much.
Jai. Yes, that's what we want. We want to think carefully how we can see Krishna. Very nice. I'm very glad to hear your realization. We all want to feel more realization of Krishna by studying this chapter. Okay, so thank you very
glories
much.
to you, Maharaj.
All glories to Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll meet you tomorrow night. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Or back to Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.